Coming up next on the voice of Alabama politics, garbage on the roads. Also, the hemp bill goes up in flames. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. And where does Tommy Tuberville really live?
Where's the car?
Well, I thought it was here.
You don't know where we parked?
They can't find their car, and no one knows where Tuberville lives, but we're gonna find out. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to the voice of Alabama politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, investigative reporter and columnist at APR. Welcome.
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
This past week, Senator Sam Gavan said the quiet part out loud. For years, people have been questioning whether Senator Tommy Tuberville actually is a resident of Alabama. Mm-hmm. We know that when he ran for the Senate seat, and I think he ran in 2019 during the COVID pandemic, he had just there was a lot of questions about his residencies, but nobody vetted him because it was during the COVID period. Mm-hmm. But now he's rumoring or teasing that he might run for governor. And there are different rules for running for governor than there are for running for the U.S. Senate. To run for governor in Alabama, you have to have been a resident of Alabama for 7 consecutive years. It does not seem to me that he has met that criteria. Josh, we've all looked at this quite a bit. Sam Gavan says he thinks he might have a residency issue. We pretty well certain he does.
Yeah, I think that if it came down to having to prove in a court or to gather things, actually it wouldn't prove in a court. What you would end up doing is the full House and Senate of the legislature would essentially be the judge and jury out of this thing. But if you ended up having to do that, you would have to go through depositions, and part of the depositions would be asking you where you lay your head at night most nights, and proving that you actually live in the place that you live. And the question for Tuberville is whether or not he can prove that he lives in this house on Cherry Street in Auburn. And that house is roughly a 1,500 square foot house, valued around $375 or so. And he currently has a Santa Rosa beach house on the beach, valued at about $6 million. It's a 4,000 square foot house that he's had for the last 22 or so years. And I don't think that most people even have a question that that's where he lives. I mean, he said it on TV. He's talked about it being his house and his home. His wife lives there and works in the area. There's no evidence whatsoever that he spends any time at all at that Auburn house, other than maybe on a game day visit here or there. And I'm not even sure that he stays there when he actually comes and parks outside the house. It's ludicrous that this has been presented as though it's his residence when you actually take a look at a lot of the facts.
Well, Susan, when Tommy Tuberville may come across as a fool sometimes, but he's not the kind of fool that would live in a small bungalow style house in Auburn and not live in his palatial beach mansion right on the ocean. I mean, that doesn't even comport with even common sense of anybody.
Well, listen, I've looked at all of his flight records, the ones that were reported by the U.S. Secretary of State. That's like a quarterly report, I think it is. I've looked at every flight he's taken and reported to the Secretary of State since he took office. Most of them, when he's not going on some sort of tour, are either to Fort Walton, Destin, or Panama City. Now, we've also got, records of taxis and whatever that he took, but some of the other stuff we have, I'm sorry, let me go back. The one thing you do notice that stands out, that he never takes a flight directly to Auburn. If he's taking a flight, goes to Auburn, it has multiple other cities in it, as if he's doing a tour. There's never direct flights to and from Auburn, Alabama, even from Birmingham, Alabama.
And again, the thing is, to be a senator, you only have to live in Alabama for a day. To be the governor, you have to have lived here. You have been a resident, which means that's where you live. That's where you have your stuff. That's what you call home. And the Cherry Street doesn't fit that definition. Now, the party can do whatever it wants to do. And John Wall said, look, it's a little early to be, talking about the residency. But one of the things that John Wall, who's the head of the Republican Party here in Alabama, said that was very troubling to me. He kind of glibly said that the most interesting thing was not really about the residency, but about whether Tuberville would pull the trigger on running for governor. Now, I like John Wall, but I would suggest, Mr. Wall, that you think the most important issue is whether he runs. I think the most important issue is whether you, as chairman of the Republican Party, will follow the black letter of the law if it should be established that he hasn't lived here for 7 years as a constant resident. Now, again, he has to travel back and forth. Mm-hmm. Senators do that all the time. Many senators have not only abodes in Washington, D.C., but other places where they live. We've got some congressmen that I don't know that even have a house in Alabama anymore. But that's not the requirement. It is a requirement to be governor, not just a house, residency.
Right. And I've also got documentation showing contracts that he made with people that showed that his residence is in Santa Rosa, Florida. Not one of them has Auburn on it.
I mean, Josh, you took on an investigative report on Representative David Cole, who had a residency problem. He ran in a district where he did not live. He was challenged. There was a challenge. The Republican Party ignored that challenge. And then after you wrote about it, they finally, the Attorney General went after him for voter fraud, and he went to jail for 60 days and was accused of a felon.
Yeah, no, it's Elijah Boyd, who was in that race, filed a challenge, and Attorney Barry Ragsdale, went after it as his attorney, and they put him through some depositions and essentially made him admit that he lived out of district. He thought his house was going to remain in the District 10 that he was representing. It was drawn out during the 2020 redrawing of the lines, and so he tried to use a friend's house that he was going to rent space from and use that as his primary residence. And it didn't fly, because you've got to prove certain things to say that this is your primary residence. And, a big thing in that was legal documents and tax documents that he used and had his address, his real address on those things. And it'll be the same thing for Tuberville. When you're a U.S. senator, you do create a lot of documents in terms of travel and other stuff that you end up oftentimes, kind of slipping up and putting your real address on things. And I think that's going to be the case. Now, no, of course, I'm not suggesting that Tommy Tuberville is going to go to prison.
No.
David Cole's situation was completely different. And he used, the problem for him was he used that as his voter registration address and went and voted in the wrong precinct. And that's what got him in trouble. And so, I'll say this for what you said. Yes, the Republican Party, investigated this. There was a challenge filed by his Republican primary opponent about his residency. All the same things that led to this were brought up in that challenge, and they glossed right over it and didn't take it seriously. And I've heard that they're going to. I've heard that that was a learning lesson for them, and that they were going to take future things more seriously. So we'll see.
Let's hope they do. We're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Your home is your most valuable asset. But what if someone tried to steal it from you? Property fraud is one of the fastest growing areas of fraud in the country today.
As a district attorney, I've seen firsthand the devastating effects of property fraud. That's why I'm proud to support the Montgomery County Probate Court's REACT program.
REACT is designed to protect your property and to give you peace of mind. By signing up, you'll receive an email notification if a document is filed against your property.
This program is a game changer. It has the potential to prevent fraud and protect countless homeowners throughout Montgomery County.
So don't wait. Sign up for REACT today and protect your home.
Protect your home with REACT. Sign up today.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Josh, I got to ask you a question. Why does the Alabama Democratic Party continue to fight like the Hatfields and the McCoys? Or now it seems to have turned into like a long-running battle with Doug Jones. I mean, come on, Doug Jones is one of the people who got elected to the Senate and actually made the state look good on a national level. But man, it just is relentless with these guys.
Yeah. You know, there's bad blood there, and it's going to remain apparently for forever. And they don't seem to care. You know that it is harmful to fundraising, it's harmful to candidate recruitment, it's harmful to getting people elected. This is a feud back and forth. You know, listen, Doug Jones was responsible for the takeover of the party back in 2018 when they kicked Nancy Worley, the late Nancy Worley, out and kind of took control of things, and then Joe Reed and Randy Kelly, who's now the chairman, took control back a few years later. And so it's been kind of this back and forth constantly. And this current thing is related to fundraising. You know, Doug has continued to maintain a PAC and to help out candidates around the state. Matter of fact, played a fairly decent role in helping out Shamari Figures and raising money for him and his successful run for Congress. And, you know, and part of that, he sent out mailers and things to raise money, for a PAC that he's associated with. And it's my understanding, according to Doug and to his attorney, that those mailers had a disclaimer at the bottom saying very clearly, we are not part of the Alabama Democratic Party. But according to Randy Kelly, some people were confused by this and that they believed that they were donating to the Alabama Democratic Party and not necessarily to Doug Jones. And so instead of this all being handled behind the scenes, where an attorney for the party would send Doug or Doug's attorney a letter saying, hey, we've got this issue raised here. Could you address it in some manner? And Doug sending a copy of it back and saying, no, I'm doing this, but if you need me to change, I can do something else. That's apparently not good enough. And so Randy Kelly sent out a letter to everybody and accused Doug Jones essentially of fraud, the kind of fraud that sent Steve Bannon to jail, to which, of course, Jones has got to respond and say, wait a minute, no, you're nuts. I didn't do this. And they've given him, 5 days to retract the statements or face a libel lawsuit. And Randy Kelly has said to me, I ain't retracting nothing. And so here we are.
Susan, and where people are shocked that the Democrats don't have more power in Alabama.
Well, they can't stop fighting amongst themselves to be able to make a plan to get a candidate on the ballot against a Republican that's sitting there with no challenger.
Yeah.
I mean, this is crazy. And accusing each other of fraud and misleading people. And that really builds a lot of trust in people giving their money to the Democrats. Right?
Whereas, the new head of the DNC came down here and spoke. Josh interviewed him on his podcast, which was the only interview he gave in Alabama. Yet the National Party seems to have no power to control what Randy Kelly and these guys do. They've tried to stop him before, and they couldn't do it. But it's dysfunctional when you have people out there that are really trying to do great things. You know, the Democrats in the House and the Senate here in Alabama are really working together on a lot of issues that will make a lot of difference to people. Now, I know Anthony Daniels the other day, Josh, said to his Republican colleagues, basically, go ahead and try it and make my day, you know, on some of these things they're trying to pass. I forget his wording, but it was...
Good luck with that.
Yeah, it was reminiscent of a little Clint Eastwood there, you know.
He was, listen, he was a good point, man. He was talking about the overtime tax repeal.
Yeah.
And, you know, he brought up a stream of hourly workers that work at some of Alabama's biggest plants and biggest producers out there, guys that work for their families every day in and day out, that provide, you know, just like all of us, you know, that go out and work a job and provide. And, you know, it brought him up and said, hey, you're going to take food off of this guy's table? So we can continue to give money to rich people to send their kids to the private schools that they're already sending them to. You know, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Good luck with it. Let's see how that works out for you when you take this away from these working folks.
Yeah. Well, I think that'd be the most foolish thing that the Republicans have done in a long time. And we've got, you know, Speaker Ledbetter, Pro Tem Gudger, smart guys. You know, I don't know, but we'll see what happens with that. I do want to bring up, and this is just sort of a pet little thing of mine. You know, the Alabama Department of Transportation just put out a report where they spend nearly $10 million a year picking up litter off the road. And that's not counting all the volunteers like we used to do around Lake Logan Martin and places like that to just get the garbage off the road. And people obviously have forgotten the Indian from their childhood.
Yes, the one that had the tear running down his face as people threw garbage out the car. I mean, why do you need to throw garbage out of a car? I mean, the back seat of our car is full of empty water bottles, but they're not on the side of the road.
Right.
And I think you looked up and found out that, you know, some, 55,000 car accidents a year in the nation are a result of people throwing food out of the car and it attracting animals to the side of the road.
Well, it's a different thing, but that's one that Josh brought up, and it's crazy. I mean, and you know, the Native American in that film may have been, or that commercial may have been crying because, you know, we brought all this garbage over here where we discovered the country that people have been living in for thousands of years. But Josh, you know, we got about a minute here. I mean, to some people this may be silly, but to me, it's like, you know, don't throw your stuff out on the road. I mean, come on.
You know, I think it's a generational thing, honestly. And I'm going to go reverse on the generational thing. I don't think a lot of people past the boomer age throw anything out of the car. I think that was a thing back in the olden days of time. It never crosses my mind to throw something out a car window. It just doesn't. And I'm other people my age and younger, I don't think that they think of throwing anything out of a car window, like, you know, fast food. You see the fast food bags along the side of the road, and you're like, who the hell are these people? Who's throwing this out of the car? You know, I don't know. It's such a foreign concept to me to throw stuff out of the car.
Well, the more concerning thing there is it's gone in just 2 years from 7 million to 9.4. Right. So it's increasing.
It's increasing. We were at a stop in Montgomery at East Chase, and this dude opened his car door and dumped a whole meal out of his car right on the road. But anyway, come on, wake up, people. Dude, you can do better. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
My personal biggest pet peeve is kids who are not properly restrained, whether that be in a booster seat, a car seat, or even a simple seatbelt. Kids, they become projectiles, and it's terrifying.
It absolutely breaks my heart to know that something so innocent could be punished so severely.
Your children rely on you to be that person that says, no, you need to put your seatbelt on.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. There was a hemp bill that originally started out to criminalize hemp products that are sold at vape stores and things like that, tinctures and gummies and all that sold in convenience stores and vape stores. And the bill to criminalize it and make it like a felony, like heroin or LSD. Well, Dr. Tim Nelson, who sponsored that bill, came back and said, well, what we'll do is we're going to write a bill where we'll tax it, legalize it. We'll do away with the smoking products and all that. Well, it came up in committee, House committee, this past week. And Susan, it burned up faster than a doobie in Cheech and Chong's hands.
It did. Because nobody's going to agree just to regulate and all that. They're going to make a fuss about it, so why bother? But I mean, like you said, they were going to take this bill originally and make more, criminals out of people that don't need to be criminalized.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we're still waiting for the AMCC to get their act together, which is not going to happen because the legislation for that died. So people have got to have somewhere to be able to get this product to help them medically or otherwise.
Josh, I think the legislature did exactly what I expected them to do, what we expected them to do, is when there's a lot of pushback and when there's doubt, do nothing. And right now, it's better than what they wanted to do because they wanted to criminalize people and then they wanted to take away the product that helps them the most, which is the vaping kind of thing.
Which is federally legal.
But anyway, they just, Melson finally at the end said, okay, we're not doing it. He was the chairman of the committee.
No, listen, if they would do nothing on most things,
Yeah, a whole lot better.
And so it was an overreach, and I think the reaction from a lot of people was exactly appropriate. It was an overreach to products that you couldn't justify the criminalization of. There was no real reporting of injuries or people that were suffering from these products being out there and being legal. They were an alternative to the things that we can't get done through the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission. And so I think that played a big role in this as well. And we talked about here a couple of shows ago about, the cops trying to chase people down and make this a criminal act or whatever, when we're not charging the people that are selling it,
Right.
which, if it's a criminal product, then, or if it's an illegal product, then surely the people selling it have to be criminals, right?
Yeah.
But I just, none of it makes any sense. So let's just leave it alone until we figure out a way to regulate and tax and have actual marijuana and things out there that's helping people.
Well, and that's the main thing. Look, I always get so frustrated because they say, oh, well, this will lead to hard drugs. Alcohol is a whole lot more. Somebody went on about, oh, these psychoactive drugs, we don't know what they'll do to you. Drink a bottle of Jack Daniels and you'll know what psychoactive that little shotgun will do to your life. And, I have known people who smoked marijuana every day. I never saw them beat their wives or their spouse. I never saw them abuse their children because they were smoking weed. But I damn well have seen families torn apart, people's lives destroyed, people killed, murdered, dying in horrible car accidents because of alcohol.
Exactly. I don't personally partake in the marijuana products, but I know people that do, people with high anxiety, people with menopause issues, people with back pain and so forth, that really need these products.
You are so bougie.
Well,
You don't partake.
I don't enjoy it. But
Yeah, I
some people
understand, but
do.
you could have just said, I don't use it.
I don't use it. Fine. To
No,
partake
but
was a good,
God,
fine,
Josh, what do you think?
standard word. Jesus. The abuse I take on myself.
And she lives by the funk and waggle is what I'm thinking. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, that's partaking.
When I did partake, I inhaled, though.
Well, I think the partaking is if you're partaking in marijuana, then God bless you. You're probably doing less harm to your body than you are if you're partaking in alcohol.
Yeah, that's true.
And a lot of other things that are out there that are far worse for you. And so I think what we ought to do is start letting adults make their own decisions on a lot of different things in terms of the medicines that they take, and in terms of the entertainment that they seek out. And a bunch of different options.
And I love you more than anything in this world. I'm just playing with you. Next thing you know, she'll be driving in the dark after getting a mani-pedi. All right.
You go to sleep before I do. You realize that, right?
I did not know this. And obviously Josh knew it and everybody else knew it. I didn't know that teachers and educational staff, support staff, those people who work for the state do not get workman's comp, or we call it workers' comp now. But if they get injured on the job, they're just booed, screwed, and tattooed, Susan.
So what you're telling me is if one of our teachers involved in a school shooting gets shot protecting our children, they'll have to pay their own medical bills?
Well, they're going to have medical insurance, but they're not going to get workman's comp, time off for leaving.
No, they'll just have to wing it for themselves. That's,
I mean, there is
that's ridiculous.
There's a correction out there, and I think is by a guy that's quickly becoming one of my favorite lawmakers. Is that Sam Gavan? I mean, Jesus, he's got a bill out there to
applause to him.
Do away to give them workers compensation, Josh.
Yeah, they should. But I'm going to say this too, and while I appreciate the bill, what would help a whole lot of teachers in achieving some of these things that they have in other states is to get together in a large group of them and form some kind of a group.
Yeah, they used to have one, but they don't have one anymore, do they?
Then they could collectively bargain, and we have collective bargaining laws in this country that would allow them to enter into these agreements and stuff, and make it to where possibly they could get workers' comp, they could get their own lunches, the duty-free lunches that they have in other states, all the surrounding states around us have them, and some of these other things that kind of go in and are part of the pay and the stuff that we expect out of our teachers here, which is not only to go to school 8 hours a day without ever eating lunch. And caring for the children, serve as human shields without any expectation that we're going to cover your expenses. Also, that we're going to arm you and let you fight off armed intruders. All of these things, maybe you should get together and fight for your own rights and your own protections, and say to people that this has got to stop. I've got
an idea for the name.
What is it?
Alabama Education Association. Wouldn't that be cool?
It'll never work.
No.
And we have to leave it right there. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.